collection of talent, and we appreciate their partnerships and everything we do. School district's doing a great job for us.
Wonderful, thank you. Is there anybody else who would like to make a recognition of any group, organization within the city?
No, Mayor, I'd like to recognize the Terrell State Hospital Volunteer Service Council. Mayor, I'd like to recognize the Terrell State Hospital Volunteer Service Council. They are hosting a paint or an auction for paintings that the children and youth at Terrell State Hospital have painted, along with having some wine to go along with the event. And it is all for proceeds that will benefit the youth that not only live in Terrell and Kaufman County, but many surrounding counties that are struggling with mental health. So I certainly want to recognize them and all their efforts that they do for our youth and include our community in those opportunities.
All right, thank you. Also, this past weekend, we had the Terrell Kaufman alumni basketball game. I want to congratulate the alumni from Terrell High School for winning back-to-back games now. We've beaten Kaufman twice. And Dwight Gentry, I recognize him for putting all this together and also offering scholarships to our TISD seniors that are both athletic, had played at least one varsity game, I think, in athletics, and also recognized for their academics and are continuing their education. Also want to thank and say publicly how much we appreciate the partnership with the TISD school board and its president, Dina Reisinger, for making those facilities available out at the high school. We talk a lot about partnerships, and this could not happen. The gymnasium was full, and it's good to see our citizens out having fun and being productive. We had also, Mayor Ronnie Velasquez was recognized, I think. So thank you for being there. Anyone else? All right. Our next item on the agenda is adoption of the minutes. Discuss and consider minutes from the regular city council meeting on May the 18th, 2021. Is there a motion?
Mayor, I make a motion that we approve the minutes from the regular city council meeting on May 18th as presented.
We have a motion from Tim Royce, Mayor Pro Tem District 5. Is there a second? Have a second from Stephanie Thomas, District 4. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor let it be known by stating aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion will carry. Our next item on the agenda is to hear remarks from visitors. Do we have any, Don? All right. Boards and commissions. Item number 7.1, discuss and consider appointment of chairman and vice chair of the Tax Increment Reinvestment Zone Number 1 Board and the Power Center Board. Is this Mike?
Yes, sir. So, Mayor and Council, you've got a bylaws issue here where the Tax Increment Finance Board and the Power Center Board always share the same membership, and they generally also then share the same chairman and vice chairman. Under the bylaws associated with those, you've got 2 members appointed by the county, and you've got 3 members appointed by the city council. So in years past, you've had Juan Salazar appointed, and so he's got some experience. And then you have the 2 new members that you appointed our most recent meeting, Andrea Reese and Charles Whitaker. Those are your 3 folks to select from there. Mr. Salazar's got some great experience from being on our airport board for quite some time. I think you all know Charles Whitaker's background. Andrea Reese is on the executive board of the Chamber of Commerce. You've got some names to select for there. Their next meeting is actually tomorrow morning at 8:30. And so they're going to jump right on into business, and we'll be doing some orientation for Ms. Reese and Mr. Whitaker.
This is a discuss and consider item. Is there a motion?
Mayor, I move to appoint Juan Salazar as chair for both the TIF and Power Center boards.
How about vice chair? Do we do that as well, Mike?
Mm-hmm.
So we'll do them, we'll take them each
You can
individually?
do them
We can
individually or together, Mayor, whichever the council prefers.
Councilwoman Velasquez, do you have a motion for vice chair as well?
Mayor, I move to appoint Terry Barber as vice chair to serve on the TIF and Power Center boards.
We have a motion from Mayor Ronnie Velazquez, Deputy Mayor Pro Tem District 3. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second from Tim Royce, Mayor Pro Tem District 5. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, let it be known by stating aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion will carry. Our next item on the agenda is discuss FY '22 budget calendar and summer meeting schedule. This is our City Secretary, Don Stile.
Mayor and council, in your packet, there's a budget schedule that includes some pretty important dates on that, including our budget workshops. And following that is the June, July, and August calendars of meetings. Please note, on June 25th is we will have a budget workshop from 1 to 5. And on July 29th and 30th, that will be our budget retreat dates. And I will be happy to answer any questions on that.
So it has been brought to my attention that we have a conflict with July the 29th and 30th by a council member. Are these dates set in stone, Mike, or?
No, I think we've got some flexibility there that we can work with. I would say that one of the issues this year and kind of what drove the creation of this schedule in the way that you're seeing it today is that I've got 1/3 of our property value under protest right now. And so when I look at the data coming back from the appraisal district, it really is showing me a lot of flux there. So from a staff perspective, it's just a little bit more straightforward for us to wait till we get the certified values. So you can see that receive certified values from KCAD there on July 26th on agenda item page 17. That's sort of how we built it from a staff point of view, because I'd like to be a little bit more secure in the numbers I'm showing you. And of course, property taxes are a large portion of our general fund budget. If we got a conflict there, then I'm sure we can work something out. And I probably need some feedback from council about, do we want to adjust to a Wednesday, Thursday date? Do we want to adjust, in some particular way?
So, is there any other dates that you're looking at, council, that would conflict with anybody here?
Mike, did you say you get the values on Monday, the 26th of July? Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, well, there goes my suggestion for 22-23. Is this something that we should do an open meeting, or should we sidebar after the meeting?
Okay, so here's what we probably should do is, if, we know the dates that are there, we know that.
Can I just
Yes.
ask real quick,
Okay.
from a staff point of view, remember, if you go back and look at agenda item page 17, you're reviewing this budget at a August 10th city council meeting. You're reviewing it again at an August 24th city council meeting. So you're not passing that budget ordinance until August the 31st. So, if you're inclined to, break up your consideration of the budget, if we have any availability to say, for example, we could use part of our July 27th meeting to do a little budget feedback and information to you. And then we could do the budget retreat on August the 5th and 6th. That might also be an option. If we need to work on it more, that's fine. I guess maybe the first step of this is that our original proposal to you was,
Yeah, go ahead, Mike.
our original proposal to you was to do one full day on the 25th. And I think that was seen as maybe not as effective. Maybe the suggestion is, let's do our 1 o'clock to 5 o'clock on June 25th. Let's go through that material and that information. And then I don't feel like I need to set everything in stone right here tonight. We didn't have this on as a voting item. This is an informational item, so if you need to continue to send calendar information to me and Dawn and Dora, then let's do that, you know?
Okay. Yeah, let's do that. What we'll do is, after tonight's meeting, council, if you have any hard dates that will not work for you, we need those so we can make sure not to use those dates and then move forward with trying to figure out. The purpose of having 2 days is I did not want for you to be rushed in the information that you were given and have an opportunity on the second day to address any issues toward the end of the second day that we had, and give us each a allotted amount of time to just discuss what was specific to us, maybe our district or maybe to the city, so.
So, Mayor, can I check on the June 25th date? Is everybody, we'll get a really good start on budget on June 25th by doing a half-day. We can give you the big picture outline themes, we can get some of your input on the budget, and we can show you kind of the skeleton of where we're going with the budget. That, to me, is a really important date to get at least some council feedback in a 4-hour afternoon session. And if council was more comfortable with it being maybe a noon to 5, then we'll maybe do a noon to 5 on that day. I'd like to get some feedback at that June meeting. So is everybody at least comfortable with that June meeting?
Is it good?
I'm good with June, and I could extend the 25th if need be, and that's at the rest of y'all's pleasure. But I'm just telling you, if you need more than 4 hours on the 25th, then I'm game for that.
I also have the same flexibility on the 25th of June.
You good on the 25th?
Okay.
Okay, let's keep that date.
Okay.
And then, if we need to start earlier or go later, we can.
I'll take the council person's advice. I'll start it at 11:30, and that'll give us time for a little social, little relaxed, and we'll just do big picture themes. I won't try to get you into the weeds on any individual department budget, but I think from my point of view, I really want to get out in front with you and show you some street issues, and I want to talk a little bit of personnel issues with you and get those things hashed through, because I think I continue to hear that from a city council standpoint, a lot of the things in the public services department with crisp and clean, street maintenance, drainage maintenance, those are real top of mind issues, and I just want to get those issues touched up front, and that would help a lot if we could do that June 25th date.
Okay. That doesn't, that still puts us in compliance with section 5.06 of the public hearing on the budget. Yes. Okay, all right.
Yeah,
Okay. All right,
very good.
thank y'all for your discussion on that, and we'll get with staff, and they'll get back with each of us. Our next item is discuss summer 2021 street projects overview. This is going to be Glenn Caldwell.
Mr. Mayor, Council, always an honor to come before you. I'd like to first say that this particular presentation is going to be provided to you by committee. So that's great news. I've got the team here. First off, I've got Mr. Frank Stevens with Schumberger Pope. He's our consulting engineer. I have Mr. Carnell Horn, which is our project manager. And obviously, Mr. Harris, Preston Harris was introduced, as well as Mr. Horn earlier. So we'll dive right into the presentation. We'll turn to the very next page, and I want to refresh some and introduce the others, since we have a new council person on staff. In preparation of what we're bringing you today, we worked through a strenuous program that provided data and analysis. That program was called robotics. So everything we're going to talk about today, we took advantage of the information that we gathered and created the document we'll be presenting. The Terrell Roads Network is the very next slide. It kind of outlined how we scored and rated our streets. If you look at the paragraph below, Terrell Streets scored a 2.69 overall. This score is equivalent to the PCI. What is the PCI? That is your pavement condition index. So that is the typical overall when you're doing a more in-depth study. That's not what this intent for this study. This study was pure for maintenance analysis. The data was collected in June of 2020. We did not do any TxDOT or county streets on this particular project. These analyses delivered 2.69 score. The total centerline miles was 106.23. Total length asphalt streets that we have in this particular study was 79.55. The length of concrete was 26.68. The total number of potholes, so let's talk about potholes. This is locations. So there's multiple potholes in one particular location. Obviously, with the weather conditions, there's far more now. We definitely can attest to that. So I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Preston Harris.
So when discussing the road summary by district, we start with District 2, which is the dark blue district, and it has a network score of 2.68 on the robotics scale, and it has a centerline length in miles of 26.02 miles, and District 2 takes up 24.5% of Terrell's roads. And then moving over to District 3, it has a total score of 2.59 with a centerline length in miles of 38.74, and District 3 takes up 36.5% of the city roads. Moving up to District 4, it has a network score of 2.58 and a centerline length of 16.98 miles and takes up 16% of Terrell's roads. And lastly, District 5 has a network score of 2.71 with a length in miles of 24.49 and takes up 23.1% of Terrell's roads.
Slide, please. For our street schedule, today on June 8th, we'll be approving the pressure paving contract up to $600,000, we hope. And we'll be briefing you on the $2 million overlay project as well today. Later this June, we'll be starting up the round of blade and grade projects. And in July, we'll be approving the $2 million overlay program as well, hopefully. And the pressure paving shall be complete in July, weather permitting, as well as the annual pavement collapse repairs. And in September, the asphalt overlay project, we anticipate to be complete in September. And then in October, we'll have the robotics citywide street assessment to start during that time.
So Cornell, let me make a budget point here. So let's think about the numbers on this page. Our general fund budget this year had $340,000 in it for this $600,000 program. That was the amount originally budgeted. So one of the very first things out of the blocks is that we are asking to go over budget in our street maintenance program this summer. I can tell you that I feel like we have enough revenue coming in from a combination of sources that we can afford that additional funds. And so if you do approve this contract tonight, which is what I'm going to recommend, we'll also later on do a budget amendment so that we can amend that with some excess sales tax revenues so that we can cover the difference between the 340 and the 600,000. I think that's an important step, and we're believers on that. On the $2 million, I'll just remind council and Ms. Thomas, since she wasn't on council when we made these decisions, we did borrow for a fleet of projects, our water meter project, some police radios, and then this $2 million for overlays. That was a borrowing that we did earlier this spring, and that was spread over a 10-year payment life. So that $2 million is money that we just closed on. We actually just got that into our financial system, and so that $2 million was from a certificate of obligation that was issued this spring. So that's the history on those dollars.
Mayor, Council, one of the things I want to do is provide to you some of the outlines that were identified in the schedule. So when we talk about blade and grade the streets, our goal is to blade and grade all the streets that are going to be pressure paved as well as hot mix overlaid. That is our goal. The pavement edge grading, the plan is to remove all of the turf and buildup on the shoulder of the road, which is very critical. We're planning to clean all of the drainage ditches to improve the drainage flow. That is a huge component that we really need to address in our community. We're planning to perform these tasks by city staff as well as contractors. The next slide will show you some of the photos of us working on Campbell Street from Athens to Chapel. You've got a before picture, then you've got an after picture showing the contractor out digging the ditch, and later he's coming back and addressing the edge, the shoulder of the road. That's the crest from the actual pavement into the soil. That we call it the breakover point. And the next two photos are where they did complete the drainage ditch as well as clean the shoulder of the road, where there was a bunch of material and leaves and so much, we call it silt. So they did a great job of removing that. And that was the work here of a contractor. The other item is our pavement collapse. This is another item that's very critical. So prior to addressing or bringing in the pressure paving as well as any overlay, we need to prep the surfaces so that we don't have failures immediately after completing our project. It's not always a fail-proof, but that's our goal. So we will be addressing all of our pavement collapse out in front of those two tasks. We will be doing what's called spot repairs in failed areas. That means we're gonna dig up the base and replace it. We'll also be saw cutting and removing areas. We're not just going to go out and dig out a section. We're gonna actually truly saw cut, have the contractor saw cut and remove this subgrade and come back with a stable subgrade prior to paving over that area. Next slide. Next slide, we're gonna talk about the pressure paving project, and we're gonna let our consultant cover that item. Mr. Frank Stevens.
Okay, so as Glenn mentioned earlier, through our robotics analysis, that is kind of the base from which we worked to identify your street maintenance program for this summer. And two projects evolved out of that, as Glenn said, the pressure paving project and your HMA overlay project. For the pressure paving project, 29 streets or portions of streets have been identified. I think it totals about a little over 5 miles, 5 1/3 miles. That came about through the robotics analysis, SPI digesting that information, working with city staff, getting input. We had to seek streets that were applicable for the pressure paving process. And pressure paving, you may be asking, what is that? It is a proprietary method of street maintenance that is patented by Donaldson Construction Company. That means they have a patent on this particular method. Thus, a sole source contract for construction.
So this is a sole source contract. So the pressure paved sole source affidavit document is specifically used in Texas for sole source procurement. It is a sworn legal commitment to the evidence of patents and other such things for the city's protection as to the same. Sole source affidavits are compliant with the Texas Local Government Code, Subchapter B, Section 252.0227A, as described in the affidavit received from the contractor. Donaldson Pressure Paved Products and Process has been approved on numerous occasions by various city and county purchasing departments in the state of Texas. And we will need to keep the sole source affidavit in our files for the reference project.
This pressure paving is suited for projects that have a pretty sound base, and yet your surface is deteriorated. As long as your street is kind of good and uniform, and that's some of that preparatory work that Glenn was talking about, the pavement edge blading and grading, and then the base repairs, that's the preparatory work, so that these guys can come in and do what they do best, and that is to slide is a map of your districts and showing where the selected portions of streets are that we have identified for the pressure paving project. The next slide of that is again, those lists of streets, and you can see some of the dimensions, the lengths, the widths, and the areas, and there's that 5.33 miles that have been identified. So that's one project. The second project, which will be a conventional competitive bid type project that will advertise for bids to solicit bids for contractors, is the hot mix asphalt overlay. And again, this is a maintenance strategy. We're looking for a little bit different kinds of streets. Although it's not major reconstruction, we're not looking for streets that scored typically in the 4s and 5s for large portions of those street limits. But streets that scored in those 2s and 3s that we want to keep. We want to not let them digress to that almost ruined condition. This is a hot mix asphalt overlay, is a very common, widely used, industry-tested, accepted maintenance strategy for street maintenance. Again, there's the preparatory work that's needed, and that's what Glenn was mentioning earlier, that city forces and contracted work through the city are doing now and up to the time that we bid this project for construction. There are some things that have to be, in addition, that will need to be done, such as edge milling. If you have a street that's a curb and gutter section, you don't want to place 2 inches of hot mix surface and it run off into the gutter and fill up your gutters and reduce your hydraulic capacity of your streets. So typically you do about 6 feet out there on the edge. They have a little machine, called a milling machine. It's got a rotary drum with these diamond head spikes on it, and they'll mill 2 inches deep over at the lip of the gutter, and then kind of taper that back over that 6 feet to maybe about a 1/2 inch. And then that allows, when that 2-inch hot mix overlay comes through, it matches up with that gutter lip at the edge, and still gets you your 2 inches all the way across your pavement. There are some of these sections that have some failed curb and gutter. Again, we weren't trying to identify streets that had significant lengths of that, but some where the cost of the failed curb and gutter doesn't overwhelm the cost of the project. We want this to be a HMAC surfacing project. There are some failed curb and gutter replacement that will be needed on some of the streets. Finally, a level-up course of HMA. If you got a street that has some of this in it, some going up and down, where you don't want to keep that, you want to try to improve upon that, it will require a first course, what we call level up, to try to even that cross section up, so we can get a good consistent 2 inches over the final surface. Again, we identified these streets in the same way, using our robotics analysis, digesting that information, using our experience in street work, city staff input, and those types of things. We considered traffic volume, road conditions, proximity to schools. Those are some of the things we took into account in identifying this project. We anticipate 120 days, that's 4 months for this project. That is calendar days, so that allows some normal, typical weather conditions. If we get in some good hot summer weather and early fall weather and don't have those things, we could possibly be done sooner than that. The next slide is your list of streets, or portions of streets, and those streets total about 3 1/3 miles. Those streets likewise are scattered.
Can we go back one slide, please? Maybe Don?
Finally, our next
Can,
slide.
can I maybe also go back one, just to kind of impress a point here? If you look at that list of projects, it would be very easy to do all of Colquitt or all of Rockwall or all of Ninth. This is portions of those roads, okay? So the most important number here is that we think that we're gonna be able to do about 3.38 miles of total roadway. So whenever we get to the point of refining this, moving forward on this, couple of clarifications. This is certainly east of State Highway 34. This is Rockwall, south of Grove. Not all of Rockwall or not all of State Street. And so those are just a couple of examples. We put tie-in only at Griffith because we've damaged some pavement there when we built the concrete section, and we need a better tie-in on the north side. So that's just a small little segment. So don't feel like we're tackling everything on these streets. So I'm going to temper my expectations here. This is an attempt to tackle about 3 1/3 miles of the major parts of these roads. Go ahead.
Yeah, just something else along those lines. If you take the hot mix overlay project and the pressure paving project, you total those, you've got 8.5, close to 9 miles out of a total of 106 miles. So you're up there 8 or 9% of your citywide streets. That's pretty significant. Not to be underestimated. My final slide is has to do with our annual streets condition assessment, our robotics assessment that we're paying right now. So do those annually. Last year we did it in June. We've already started the process of getting that in place, but we're holding off on the actual data collection and the analysis that will follow until we complete the construction of the pressure paving and the hot mix overlay so that we can incorporate those improvements into the assessment. Once that occurs, like right now, we're trying to tweak the map and make sure we've got all new streets and still maybe a few little minor pieces that we might have overlooked last year. For instance, one of the questions that robots came to us was, I think it's East Woods Street. There's a little section that goes down there, and then it looks like it kind of ends, and there's another little piece, it's a locked road, but there's a house down there. So we've got a question I'll be getting with Glenn, I want to ask him, hey, is the city maintain that, or is that considered a driveway? So there's a few little items like that, no more than 6 or 8 right now, but we want to make sure we got that all right, because there's a guy named Mike Sims that's real adamant about getting that. So we'll spend time doing that, but after the pressure paving and the hot mix asphalt concrete projects are completed, then we'll go out and do the data collection, send that off, that takes less than a week. We send that off to robotics, and that takes them about 30, 40 days to do the analysis and get that back to us, and then we break that down and put it into the final report for the city.
Thank you, Mr. Stevens. So I'll close with our recommendations moving forward. Our goal is to ask council to approve the sole source contract for pressure paving, and that's with Donaldson Construction Company, LLC, in an amount not to exceed $600,000. That's what we'll be coming back later tonight to do a discuss and consider on. We're hoping to be able to move forward with the blading and grading, with the pavement collapse repairs necessary for pressure paving, as well as the overlays. Our start of annual robotics citywide street assessment should occur immediately after we complete our pressure paving and overlay streets. This will definitely give us a clear, concise result of our performance. I'll close with this, Mr. Mayor and Council. I've been with the city for over 16 years, maybe 17, and I am very excited about the opportunities and the goals and directions we're headed with our streets. This is amazing, and we're looking forward to your decision later this afternoon. We'll open up for any questions or comments.
Thank you, Glenn. So, council, let me start out by saying I want to say thank you for your support in helping us find the monies that allows us to move forward with the street program. One, I can tell you that all of us are probably going to be disappointed because we can't do everything we want, right? We just don't have the funding available. But however, there was a method used in determining what streets were targeted for these programs. I want you to be mindful of the fact that there was a time when council just didn't allocate money for either repairs or maintenance or resurfacing, any of those things, right? So we're moving in the right direction. Is it moving as fast as we would like? Probably not, you know, but we do have budget constraints. And as we think about moving forward, realize that no district was targeted for less street or more street. This was completely the robotic analysis that was done, that we paid for, that we wanted to look, that we asked for. I think, Mayor Pro Tem, you know, you were real pleased because finally we had some hard data to use in addressing the streets for the citizens, right? The potholes, the drainage, all of that that's combined in that. So be mindful of that. I want to open it up for questions for Glenn, but remember, there was a method that was used in determining, and we're not engineers, and we don't do road repairs and all of that. And again, they do, their staff, and so their recommendations are based on all of their knowledge to try to give us the best possible street program that we could have for this year. So with that, I'll open it up.
So I'd say the first statement would be, man, citizens, we hear you and we heard you. So this is good action, right? So Glenn's been doing this a long time. I've been on council 5 years now or so. We've gradually increased the budget. This is by far the most money we would have ever spent on streets in 1 year. So it is amazing. So that's it. So citizens, we hear you. People are watching this on YouTube, and they should just know there's a lot of lane miles coming their way. So hooray. It will never be fully complete. It just won't. By the time we get done, more potholes will appear somewhere else. So with that being said, I would say, man, I'm very grateful for council and Mike and Glenn's team. And so very, very grateful for the whole project. And then if I can transfer to a question, whether it is pressure paving or hot mix. Glenn, what is the process? And it's probably not a warranty in the street world, but what is their service level agreements? How do we hold the vendors accountable for good work? You know, within certain amount of days, if a section of roadway should fail, what is the process to evaluate and to correct any problems?
Well, the beautiful part of that we have in our contracts, workmanship. We also have what's called a payment and performance bond that will be executed if council so approves what we'll be presenting in the later hours. So that's how we protect the investment.
All right, great. I just wanted to know that there was a method. As long as there's a method, great.
And that's a good question there, Mayor Pro Tem, because I was also concerned. If you notice, the company's from Missouri, and we have a little bit different weather temperature-wise than they do in Missouri. It gets pretty hot here, and I was concerned maybe that it would perform differently here. But I've been told that you've gone to the Dallas area and seen some of their product, and you're comfortable with it.
Very.
Otherwise, you wouldn't have presented it to us.
That's correct.
Okay.
And typically, when you speak of roadways, yeah, dry weather can have its risk factors, but a larger concern would be their weather, where it's wet and cold and then hot. So if we get in our Texas zone and the weather becomes consistent and it gets dry, I think we'll even see a greater benefit from their program.
And just one more in the weeds question. Pressure paving versus hot mix. Is one of them a milling of the road down? I mean, or what is the difference between the two in a short answer?
Okay, I'll try to make it short. So with the pressure paving, I think Frank mentioned a large portion of this earlier. With pressure paving, it's going to do three things. It's going to fill cracks, seal the roadway, and give you a drive surface. That's its objective. On the hot mix overlay, it's going to give you a 2.5-inch full width overlay with an edge mill on the shoulder to prevent the water, allow the water to drain off the roadway into the curb and gutter.
Let me
That was a good
also.
refresher, thank you.
Yeah, that's a great explanation, and I would just use it as a roads example as well. Think of Elm. Man, Elm looks like a pretty good street right now, but Elm's starting to develop some cracks, and it's starting to be noticeable that maybe I'm gonna have some problems soon on Elm. So I can pressure pave Elm, I can get cracks, and I can get a good drive surface on top of Elm. And I got, a handful of other streets in town that it was appropriate to do that methodology. So they were the ones that were candidates for pressure paving. I could use then, I'll stay in your district for the sake of convenience. I could take a look at a couple of spots on Colquitt, and I could say, okay, here's a location where if I fix a pavement collapse, and then I mill down over the rest of the road, and I make sure that I blade and grade and clean up the edge so I can get the water off the side, then putting 2 inches of asphalt on top of it, that's gonna give me 10 years of surface. And that's gonna give me, my goal for this whole thing, and the thing I kept pushing the guys for was, what's my total amount of mileage that I can not touch for 10 years, right? We'll do some maintenance on these roads over the next 10 years, but by and large, we'll have spent the bulk of the money we need to on this 8.5 miles, and then we can go jump into next year's program and pick some more roads and go tackle those. One of the notes in this presentation that we kind of flew by, I'll touch on during my next presentation, the next agenda item, is we also have some roads that are really candidates to turn into concrete streets. And so there's a whole other realm of that that's coming soon as well that we need to dig into. But we just try to find the right technique for each street. And then, as we discussed in the spring and in the January, February time period, whenever we go to bid, I think we've had a problem in the past of bidding a variety of construction methodologies that didn't help us maximize our resources. So here we've got a sole source for 600,000 and it's all the same work. And then we've got 2 million and it's all the same work. It's gonna get us better pricing and it's gonna extend the amount of mileage we're gonna be able to deliver to citizens.
Mr. Mayor, Council, City Manager, I want to close with this. So this is so exciting to me. I'm going to share with you one quick synopsis. We're taking the time and investing in our streets. So with that, we're planning to come back to the city manager with a plan to also address what we call in the engineering field, the drip line. We must focus on implementing a plan to address the overgrowth on our trees within our right-of-way. So keep that in mind for future discussion. And I'll close with that, Mr. Mayor.
Let's give everybody an opportunity.
Okay.
Mayor Ronnie or Stephanie, do you have anything?
When we look at the example for Campbell Street, that was something that, I was appreciative of staff getting out there, getting the contractor to do the work. So I went out there, things looked good. And then I got called back out there by community members that said, hey, there's standing water. It looked like it wasn't draining because of, thank you, Mike, the culverts were not settled the way they need to be settled, or maybe the contractor got a little bit too ambitious when clearing out the drainage there and making it deeper. So when we look at, really focusing on quality control, since we've already worked with the specific contractor and we're looking at hiring them, what is it that we can do? And kind of going back to what Tim asked about, the service and being able to bring them back and make sure that, they help make sure that the water is draining properly after the work is done. But then two, also having staff identify any culverts that need to be replaced, either prior to the contractor coming out or while they're out there, to make sure that by the time that project is done, that the water truly does drain as it's supposed to. And if for some reason it's not, that we can get those contractors back out timely.
Yeah, so that's a two-part conversation I'll have with you. So when you talk about addressing drainage ditches, obviously when you focus on addressing a block or area, the ultimate objective is to cover all of the areas of drainage so that the water can get to its outfall point. Well, unfortunately, from a budgetary standpoint, we have to manage strategically the funds that we have to accomplish goals and objectives. We will have someone out doing site inspections on our everyday basis on these projects as well. Mr. Sims has already given me that directive to make sure I address that and take care of that. And two, on the culverts. So the culverts are a neat component. Culverts can be of great value to you, but if you look at some of the culverts, they were installed far before our time, and we will need to make a decision on whether that culvert needs to be removed so that the water can drain. And we also have to have accountability from, yes, the city staff, but also accountability and support from the citizens to help maintain and keep those areas clear and clean. So there's a combination of things that we want to work hard to focus on in our efforts to achieve the ultimate objective.
And that makes sense with, some culverts, there's some properties that, years ago had 2 driveways. And you have culverts, and some culverts are failing, so you may not need culverts anymore in one driveway, right? In my, I'll make a comment and then kind of a question that, maybe we can tackle on at a later time, Mike, but, streets and drainage, we're covering on this item, and we're hearing that, yes, we as council have approved and put more money towards our roads and drainage, stormwater cleaning, but it's just not enough, right? It's not enough. That's the 2 top things I hear from community members, regardless of whatever district I may be standing in. And so this is really to once again say to city manager and my colleagues that I'd like to see more money in this year's budget go towards, yes, streets and especially drainage. We have over 5-7 years of not cleaning our drainage ditches, so it's a slow process. So I also wonder about the strategy on cleaning the drainage ditches when we're doing the street work. We're doing sections of roads, but I feel like we need to be doing maybe an entire road and understand that it will require more funds to be able to do the work. So that's where I go back to, saying we need more money to go to our stormwater cleaning and our streets.
I can tell that Glenn is smiling because he can't wait to say, yes, I'd love to have more money too. But I guess what I'll say is I think that's a great conversation starter for budget retreat, and we'll take that comment seriously, and we'll try to get you some strategy ideas there in the budget retreat for how we handle that request.
And I would add something to the councilwoman. You have to remember, a lot of stormwater funding is items that we attach to our water bill. So really, if we want to improve stormwater drainage, we really have to evaluate what our district needs are and what our colleagues can handle, and sometimes that is increasing that stormwater drainage. So I can't just tell Glenn to go do better. I can, but also have to give him the tools in the toolbox. So I would encourage Ronnie and maybe Stephanie, get together with Glenn and Mike and find out what that current charge is right now and what increasing it would look like for your district, because that is how you see improvement on stormwater. That's up to us in the funding, and I agree that we need to do more. And while I do want Glenn to do better, I got to give him the tools in the toolbox.
So I have some work for Cornell and Preston, right? Could you find out if we have a information program that informs our citizens of the importance of their drainage, continued upkeep, right, and the flow of the water through the drainage area in front of these homes, right? If they can help us keep them clean, maybe it's a information type deal. The importance of it is so that we can not only the city do their part, but the citizens do their part as well in keeping the drainage clean and clear. I don't know what that would look like, how you would do it, but I don't know that we have that available.
I get to say that when I was Carnell's age, I worked for the North Central Texas Council of Governments, and they have a ready-made public information campaign on that very topic. So,
Excellent.
yeah.
There you go. Just take from there.
And Mayor, I'd like to add to that to say, all our customers get the bill in the mail. So I think it would be wonderful to get some information in English and Spanish that is sent out regarding this, along with, maybe some online or places that our community members may visit and may be interested in actually reading the information, right, some key spots in the community.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Thank you, staff. Our next item on the agenda is discuss capital projects overview. This is City Manager Mike Sims.
So, Mayor and Council, I wanted to give you an overview under Section 8.3 related to capital projects, partly because we've got some CO notice of intents later on in the agenda. So as you've kind of had a chance to look through your agenda, you know that here in a moment, we'll have 3 notices of intent. And I wanted to use this item to kind of go over what those notice of intents are in a big picture format. And to do that, I'm going to tell you, we're really just pulling material straight out of your strategic plan. So that's why I've got your strategic plan sitting here in front of you. And so if you take a look at and I'm being old-fashioned now, I'm going to real paper that was actually handed out in front of you. So I know that's going to throw you for a loop. But page 6 is our infrastructure goals. Remember, one of our themes in our strategic plan was our citizens benefit when our core infrastructure meets the needs. So we have a set of major construction goals there. And I'm going to just go through the first chunk of them and tell you that's an intimidating list. Build Temple, Blanche, and South Alley as concrete streets. Reconstruct North Alley, sections of Apache Trail and Metro Drive. Reconstruct Muckleroy Building to serve as destination amenity. That's the BFTS museum location. Select and engineer the road, water, sewer, drainage, sidewalks, lighting, and parking for the town square development, including quiet zones and complete streets on 80 and Spur 226. Identify and engineer a second North Texas Municipal Water District take point, as well as water distribution system for the Big Brushy Creek corridor. Acquire land for a new library/community center, 3 fire stations, park expansions, and lake protection zones. And I'm exhausted, I'm only halfway through the list, okay? So when we say, what are we doing big picture with construction, we've got some very lofty goals built into our 3-year plan. And from a capital planning standpoint, I then get to flip over to page 34 in my packet, or in my strategic plan, and I can start looking at some things that are listed here. So look at your long-term paddock right there. Remember, we already have a notice of intent out on borrowing related to that $3.5 million. We're actually going to wash that $3.5 million into the debt we're going to talk about here in a few minutes. That's sales tax back to debt. Remember, the paddock is the lighting at parks and some other park improvements. Then if I flip over to page 35, I can see refinance package. Recall that we've got an opportunity to save on interest rate on one of our borrowings by refinancing one of our borrowings and extending that out. And we told you at the time that we adopted this a few weeks ago that we were still working on the numbers where it says TBD there on downtown parks package, concrete streets. We've really looked through the refinancing. We know that when we do the refinancing, we're going to end up with about $13.5 million that we can use to spend on capital projects. And so that's that refinance package being split up between things like acquiring a site for fire station number 3, doing our work with concrete streets, like, for example, the Temple project that we've already got almost completely designed. And then there's that tax increment refinance package of $5 million. That's essentially the Muckleroy building and the rebuild of the BFTS museum on Moore Avenue there. So there's a lot built in there, and as you see our notices of intent later on in the agenda, all 3 notices of intent are referenced in this packet that you're seeing. We did originally think that we would hold the refinance package and the TERS package for FY22, and as I went through this with Jay Ayers and I went through this with Jason Hughes, really what we are seeing is that we can accomplish this summer removing a lot of interest rate uncertainty. and getting this done now, this summer, we feel like is the best move for the city due to this, where interest rates are right now, and it's just not necessary for us to have that caution of waiting longer to do that project. So we're going to recommend going ahead now, advertising immediately. We'll continue to work on all of the cash flow into it, but just to clarify, you're looking at, you're going to see here in a moment, action items to do the following. Page 34, long-term paddock borrowing, that's type B sales tax, and that's going to be a flow of funds into your INS payback. Then you've got Texas Water Development Board for water, that's the 1.5 million. Then you've got the Texas Water Development Board for 10 million. That's primarily Kings Creek improvements, Kings Creek wastewater treatment plant improvements. Then I flip over to refinance package. In refinancing the existing debt we have and then adding more debt onto that, that's the 13.5 million. So that's actually INS-backed property tax debt and saving money on our refinance package there. And then that TERS package is taking money that you already are generating out of your tax increment refinance district and putting that into downtown Terrell. Remember this conversation we've had before of, as we get excess revenue from our FM 148, Interstate 20 location, that comes into your tax increment finance district. We're able to use that in the downtown area. That's consistent with your downtown, with your tax increment finance board of directors finance plan. So those are the first group of borrowings. You're going to see that later on in the agenda, but I felt like it was worth kind of a big picture chat rather than just throw those notices of intent at you.
And Mike, I think it's important to state, we don't believe that we're going to need to raise our tax rate at 76.
Absolutely, great point, Mayor. The part of the point of the analysis, and well, why did we pick that particular dollar amount? We wanted to make sure that we were following the council's priorities and delivering as much as we could, but we wanted to do that without any change whatsoever in the tax rate and without any change whatsoever in our bond rating. And so the analysis has come back that we're comfortable doing these borrowings at these levels with no change to the tax rate and with no change to our credit rating.
Thank you, Mike. You might have any questions before we move forward? Okay, next, item number 9 on the business items. Legal, would you read that in, and this will be handled by Charles Fenner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. We bring to you tonight ordinance number 2866, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Terrell, Kaufman County, Texas, amending Appendix 2 zoning ordinance of the City of Terrell by changing the zoning classification on certain real property more particularly described as Lot 1, Block 351, Terrell Revised, in addition to the City of Terrell, and also known as 801 North Rockwall Street, as shown on the plat attached here to as Exhibit A and made a part hereof for all purposes, from retail R to single-family residential 7.5, SF 7.5, providing for severability and providing an effective date. This comes to you tonight on first reading.
Thank you, Legal.
Thank you, Mr. Trumper. Mayor, Council, excuse me, usually you have the, with the ordinance, you have the public hearing first and then the ordinance. This time, we had done it a little differently, and we had to come back with the ordinance, so you'll have the first reading. So you've actually had the public hearing on this for the zone change and approved it. And so tonight before you is the ordinance that you'll have the first, you'll have the approval and then the first reading of it.
Okay.
And then it'll come back again for the second reading.
Anybody have any questions?
Charles, could you just remind everybody on 801 North Rockwall Street, this is the property, just
Right.
give them the brief reminder. I know we talked about it already, but.
So it was the, it's the property that's on the corner of Rockwall, the Alamo area there. All the property around it is single family, and we had this area zoned retail, and the future land use has it as retail, as single family, so traditional neighborhood. So they just wanted to change the zoning back to single-family, so they'd be conforming, and it would be easier for them to refinance their property, so. And I don't think you have a map or anything in the agenda, because we had the public hearing before, so.
And we, as I recall, we didn't have anybody to speak on, against it.
This was a unanimously approved P and Z item that then turned into a unanimously approved city council item, and this is just codifying it correctly.
Okay. Is there any questions for Mr. Fenner? Hearing none, is there a motion on ordinance number 2866?
Mayor, make a motion that we approve ordinance 2866 as presented.
We have a motion from Tim Royce, Mayor Pro Tem, District 5. Is there a second?
Second.
Have a second from
I didn't get that.
Mayor Ronnie
Could you try
Velazquez.
again?
Sure.
Man, I'm telling you, the government is listening to everything we do. I can't even have a council meeting without them sneaking in.
Your
Let me
gavel
turn it
works great
off.
on that phone.
Right.
You just gavel that
I
phone.
may have to. So I have a motion from Tim Royce, Mayor Pro Tem, District 5. Is there a second? I have a second from Mayor Ronnie Velazquez, Deputy Mayor Pro Tem, District 3. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, let it be known by stating aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion will carry. Our next item on the agenda is item 9.2. Again, legal, would you read that in?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, we bring to you tonight ordinance number 2867, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Terrell, Kaufman County, Texas. Plan Development 21.02, PD 21.2, amending Plan Development PD 20.05, PD 20-05, in the manner shown in the revised North Side Addition subdivision development conceptual drawings and the revised North Side Addition development standards, copies of which are attached here to as Exhibit A and B, and made a part hereof for all purposes, providing for the repeal of conflicting ordinances, providing for severability, and providing an effective date. Again, this comes to you tonight on first reading.
And this again is Director of Municipal Development, Charles Fenner.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, Council. As you may recall, this was again, we had the public hearing on this agenda item the last meeting. Excuse me, we had amended this PD just to change 2 lot widths on the site plan of the plan development, and that was all that we did. So it was essentially just amending the existing PD, very simple change. It was unanimous at the P and Z, and same with the council.
So, Charles, for orientation, this is Rose and 34?
This is, thank you for getting me off. It's the street that we're, Jerry Street.
Right. The northern edge of this property is Rose.
Yes.
The eastern edge of the property is 34. The southern edge of the property is Jerry.
Right.
And so on down the line. So this
Mosby
was the
Cali.
planned development in that area.
Right. That's, it was the planned development for single-family housing, the north side addition.
And then again, it's unanimously approved by planning and zoning. And the last time you saw this, it was unanimously approved by council. And again, this is the proper codification of the action you already took.
Any questions? Hearing none, Mayor, entertain a motion on ordinance number 2867.
Mayor, make a motion that we approve ordinance 2867 as presented.
We have a motion from Tim Royce, Mayor Pro Tem, District 5. Is there a second? Have a second from Stephanie Thomas, District 4. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, let it be known by stating aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion will carry. Item number 9.3 is discuss and consider pressure paving sole source contract. This is Director of Public Services, Glenn Caldwell. Oh, sorry, Cornell, and they switched on us.
Yes, sir, I did.
Cornell and Preston. Go ahead.
We briefed you on this in our previous presentation. City staff would like the council to approve the pressure paving sole source contract to Donaldson LLC not to exceed $600,000. The work shall be completed within 45 days after the contract has been awarded and a contract schedule shall commence on the 13th day of the award date.
So Cornell, you're comfortable coming to the council and requesting $600,000
Yes, sir.
for pressure paving,
Yes, sir.
correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. Anybody have any questions? Comments? Is there a motion? Not to exceed $600,000, is that correct? Yes.
Mayor, I make a motion that we approve the contract for pressure paving for Donaldson Construction in the amount not to exceed $600,000 as presented on item 9.3.
Thank you, Councilman. We have a motion from Tim Royce, Mayor Pro Tem District 5. Is there a second? Have a second from Stephanie Thomas, District 4. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, let it be known by stating aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion will carry. Our next item on the agenda is 9.4, discussion and consideration of all matters incident and related to approving and authorizing publication of notice of intention to issue Series 2021A certificates of obligation, including the adoption of a resolution pertaining thereto. This is Mike Sims.
So Mayor and Council, I'm going to give everybody a moment to take a deep breath and get to page 185. That's the Exhibit A on the back side of Resolution 1044. So if you go down to Exhibit A, what you're going to see there is that we're going to create Series 2021A Certificates of Obligation. Under that, we are going to have a Series A that allows us to have enough funding available for the $5 million for the Muckleroy building becoming the BFTS Museum. That project we've been working on for quite some time. It'll give us 3.5, and that's revenue supported by your tax increment refinance district. You'll need $3.5 million included in that $22 million for your Park and Downtown Improvement Corporation to do their park improvements. That's primarily that lighting project that you've heard of before. Then after that, it allows us to refinance some existing debt. And in the way of refinancing that existing debt, we open up the ability to have $13.5 million for a series of improvements. And you'll see as you read through all of this that, wow, we certainly did provide a long list here. So I want to kind of hit some high points there. You can see that item 2, where it says the little 2I there, acquiring land for public facilities, to wit, firefighting facilities. And I'll just kind of pause there and remind you that we've seen our study from Shane LaCroix saying that we need to have a third fire station roughly over close to the corner of 148 and Apache Trail. We think we've made a lot of progress on what that location would be, and we want to make sure that we have funds available for that. You've heard before the battle plan to realign where our library is located with a community center in Town Square, making sure that that has a home and a place to be, so that's included here. Then we have item 3, that's that museum location, quite a bit of work to be done there, including parking lots associated with that. Item 4 is the one that kind of overlays what I was mentioning earlier during Glenn and Frank's presentation related to, okay, after we do our $600,000 for Donaldson, after we do our $2 million for asphalt, we want to do a round of concrete streets. And so that's what item 4 is listing there: constructing and improving streets, including drainage, landscaping, retaining walls, curbs, gutters, sidewalks, signage, traffic signalization, street noise abatement, incidental thereto, and acquisition of land and rights-of-way therefore. Whew, so that's a mouthful, but I can simplify it by saying, first, we want to make sure that we build the Temple project. We've got an expansion going on at Builders First Source, and we need to make sure that a project we started engineering some time ago, whenever we started our partnership with Builders First Source, we need to make sure that Temple's a concrete street. I think Councilwoman Velasquez was successful last night. Well, excuse me?
Councilwoman.
Oh, I'm sorry, did I say that wrong? I'm sorry. Councilwoman, man, I'm going to get in trouble, aren't I now? Yeah, Councilwoman Velasquez was successful last night, I think, in going to the Stallings Homeowners Association, which I appreciate very much you doing. And so they were able to see the battle plan for what that road looks like. It's easy to see that Builders First Source is expanding right now. They're doing that under previous council action, and we have just got to get out there and get that built as a concrete street. Then also, several of us have identified, and I know it's in Councilmember Simpson's district, but the Mike Cronin Business Park has several failed concrete streets, and we need to really get in there and work on those. Those are a couple of the highlights of things that we will be doing with that authorization. We put an item in there for flood control improvements. We have a little bit of work to do there, although we could do a lot. And part of that is to pay for those improvements associated with Blanche, where we have drainage that needs to go under Blanche that helps drain that location at the corner of High and State Highway 34, where the county sub courthouse is. You've seen the briefing from Steve Rogers about where we've got some very deep water during flood events there. I'm going to tell you flat out, that's the most dangerous drainage location in the city of Terrell, because people turn off of State Highway 34 not knowing there's a big dip there during the rain, and we regularly have to pull people out of the water there. So this gives us a bit of funds necessary for that. So we included all of those package of improvements there. The total on that's $22 million, and all of that also includes the issuing costs that need to go along with it. So lots of legalese built into that. And remember, today we're not borrowing that money, but state law says you've got to issue a notice of intent. And so this would be what shows up in the newspaper, and we're ready to stick this in the newspaper and let people know that we're moving forward on this group of projects. We're confident, as I said earlier in answer to the mayor's question, that this will not change our credit rating and this will not change our property tax rate. So we're living within our budget means here. So that is, we've got to do 3 of these resolutions to work through the process correctly. And Mayor, I would say that that's my presentation on resolution number 1044.
Thank you, Mike. So again, this issuance of Series 2021A certificates of obligation should be not to exceed $22,250 for the purpose of paying contractual obligations. Is there a motion? Well, is there any discussion? Anybody have any questions of mine? Hearing none, is there a motion?
Mayor, I make a motion to approve resolution 1044 as presented, not to exceed 22,250.
All right, we have a motion from Councilwoman Mayrani Velazquez, Deputy Mayor Pro Tem District 3. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a second from Tim Royce, Mayor Pro Tem District 5. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor let it be known by stating aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Item number 9.5, discussing consideration of all matters incident and related to approving and authorizing publication of notice of intention to issue Series 2021B certificates of obligation, including the adoption of a resolution pertaining thereto. This again is Mike Sims.
So Mayor and Council, again, this one's a little bit easier if you go over to the Exhibit A on this, and on mine, that's page 188. This one is basically the next chunk of money for us to make improvements to Kings Creek wastewater treatment plant. There's a little bit of money in here that helps us with South Alley as well. So we're happy to move forward on it. On this one, you've seen this presentation several times from Steve Rogers and Mike McKeska about how we're moving forward and doing with our Texas Water Development Board borrowings. This is a subsidized interest rate on this one, so that's very nice. This does go into your payments on your water bill and your sewer bill every month. And so as we have new things get constructed here. Those are new people buying water and sewer, and we need to treat that, and then they pay for it when they start paying their water and sewer bills. So it's important, and also this $10 million is one in a series of steps that helps us to make sure that we have TCEQ, Texas Commission on Environmental Quality, permission to run Kings Creek wastewater treatment plant. And so as you guys know, the last thing we want to do is run afoul of state regulatory requirements there, and this $10 million helps us get to the point where we're being allowed to run our wastewater treatment plant. So it's a very important issuing, and really the the culmination of quite a bit of work in our engineering department.
Okay, again, for this series, the principal amount is not to exceed $10,045,000. Is there any questions of staff or Mr. Sims? Hearing none, the mayor will entertain a motion. Series 2021B, certificates of obligation.
Mayor, I make a motion that we approve Resolution 1045.
It already says not to exceed on it, so that's okay.
It is in resolution form, is it not?
Yeah, it's already in the not to exceeds in the
Okay,
resolution.
all
Yeah.
right. We have a motion from Tim Royce, Mayor Pro Tem District 5. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a second from Mayor Ronnie Velazquez, Deputy Mayor Pro Tem District 3. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor let it be known by stating aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion will carry. Our next item on the agenda is item 9.6, discussion and consideration of all matters incident and related to approving and authorizing publication of notice of intention to issue taxable series 2021C certificates of obligation, including the adoption of a resolution pertaining thereto. Again, Mike Sims.
So Mayor and Council, this is the last in the 3 of notices that will go in the newspaper saying what we're working on from a borrowing standpoint. This is the smallest one. This is $1,535,000. This is the clean water side, the drinking water side, the drinking water side of our Texas Water Development Board borrowing program. This time around, it's money that's going to be helping us with both North Alley and South Alley to put the water pipes under North Alley and South Alley correctly. Sort of the next tranche of money, if you will, necessary to do that. Again, you've seen Mike McKeska and Steve Rogers kind of talk about the big picture here. From my point of view, if I can't get water correctly in North Alley and South Alley, I can't get fire suppression systems, and I can't get the kind of water pressure downtown necessary for great new restaurants and great new residential downtown. So this helps a lot, correct some deficiencies in the system, allowing us to promote our downtown redevelopment. So very happy to have it in front of you, and happy to be able to move forward on it.
Again, council, this is in a principal amount not to exceed $1,535,000 for the purpose of paying contractual obligations. I don't see on anything that I've got a ordinance, a number associated with. Do y'all have it?
There's should say resolution
Resolution number?
24406.
Okay,
47.
okay. I just don't have it with me. All right.
No, we're on 1046. This is 1046.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. So, ordinance 1046.
Resolution 1046.
Resolution 1046, I'm sorry. Is there a motion?
Mayor, I make a motion that we approve Resolution 1046.
I have a motion from Tim Royce, Mayor Pro Tem District 5. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a second from Mayor Ronnie Velazquez, Deputy Mayor Pro Tem District 3. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion will carry. Item number 9.7, discuss and consider resolution number 1047, a resolution supporting City of Terrell's application to the Texas Department of Transportation's 2021 Transportation Alternative Set Aside Call for Projects.
So Mayor and Council, as we often do, we attempt to try to find the absolute best project in terms of the competitiveness of that project. In this particular case, there's a opportunity over at the Texas Department of Transportation to add a pedestrian option to a state roadway. And whenever we looked at what would be competitive for us to add a pedestrian option to a state roadway, we found that they love gaps, and that we had a gap that was about to appear on our FM 148 section. So as you know, you can go all the way down to Interstate 20, and you can walk on a sidewalk, most of which was built by the development partners that we have there. And then you get all the way up to sort of where Discount Tire and Taco Cabana are, and you can cross over and you can walk on the brand new sidewalk that was built with our FM 148 North project. And then you get to some sidewalk that was built by the Ford dealership, and then you kind of get on through that sidewalk all the way across Bachelor Creek. Well, then there's a gap, and you kind of run over in the front of where you can imagine the Risinger Vet Shop is and some of the other development along FM 148. Eventually, and we think next year, TxDOT will start reconstructing the corner of FM 148, 205, and US 80. And they'll be actually putting sidewalks in where there are gaps in that system all the way through the area around Walmart, CVS, the old Ford dealership, some of the other businesses there, and then just barely a little bit south of the railroad tracks. So our goal was to look at that gap created between US 80 and roughly Bachelor Creek and say, you know what, that chunk right there is a great candidate for sidewalks. Because one of our goals has always been, if I live in the neighborhood around Talty, Mineral Wells, West End, all of that zone, can I walk to a job at the corner of 148 and Spur 557? And the answer is right now, almost, but we have a gap in the sidewalk system. So that's a convincing project for TxDOT to put money into. It'll cost us basically $650,000 to do that. Almost all of that money will be grant money. And so we'll have to come up with a percentage of this. We'll have to come up with any cost overrun money of it. Right now, I can't quote exactly what that will be. Usually it's around 20%. So I'm going to tell you that we're going to be in at somewhere around $150,000 to $200,000 on this project, but well worth it to get another $400,000 to $450,000 out of TxDOT to put those sidewalks in. We think it'll be a successful grant because it so perfectly matches the needs of the program. And when we put some feelers out about it, they seem pretty excited to get this application from us. So I'm pretty optimistic about it, and I'm hopeful that this will be successful.
Thank you, Mike. Anytime we can find partners that would allow us to do more than what we have available in our budget and partner and get big projects done, that's a plus for the city at a lower cost. So does anybody have any questions or comments for Mike?
The percentage was at 20, we would be responsible for 20%?
Yes.
Yeah.
We're not sure, though.
We're on roughly right now because there's still some arm wrestling to do with TxDOT to try to get the best we can get out of this deal. But I'm going to go with about 20% at this time.
And if selected, it would be a, what budget year item?
We would need to have the budget available for it in the FY22 budget. So we'd have to find, again, somewhere in that 20% range of that project during that period of time.
Sounds like a great project. Not my district, but it's just.
That's a good project,
It's a
right.
good project
Yes.
that benefits the city, so that is great.
Connectivity.
Right.
Is there a motion on item 9.7? Resolution number 1047.
Mayor, make a motion that we approve resolution 1047 as presented.
I have a motion from Tim Royce, Mayor Pro Tem District 5. Is there a second? Have a second from Stephanie Thomas, District 4. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, let it be known by stating aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion will carry. Our next, are we going to?
Yes, sir.
Our next item is to adjourn into executive session in accordance with Section 551 of the Texas Government Code to discuss the following. Section 551.072, deliberations regarding real property. And Section 551.087, deliberations regarding economic development negotiations. That's it.
I'm trying to get us to 10 o'clock. We're almost there.
I know you are, man. Y'all are work. Dang.
Listen, this is, we'll get the Dallas council time. We'll be in here at 1 a.m.
All right. We're going to reconvene into regular session and consider action, if any, on items discussed in executive session. There are none. We are adjourned. Hey, and somebody tell me what happened to